Hey there everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Rank 'Em All, where we rank albums from different metal bands. And today we're going to rank Testament's full discography. And Testament is of course one of the premier thrash metal bands that album debuted back in 1987. And they are still going strong to this day, and so far they have released 12 studio albums. And we're going to rank those from the worst to the best here today. So if you're a Testament fan or a thrash metal fan in general, then smash that like button and subscribe, because now it's time to rank Testament's full discography. The worst Testament album is in my opinion Demonic, and this album was released back in '97, and during this time period the band had somewhat of an identity crisis. Thrash metal was a thing of the past, and Testament tried to find a new sound by leaning more towards death metal. And I think that it just didn't work out that well. And the album also has a 90s production, which I'm not really a fan of, so that's why Demonic is in my opinion Testament's worst album, and the only album of theirs that I don't really listen to anymore. In 11th place we have Low, and this album was released back in '94, 3 years before Demonic, and this was the band's first album without guitarist Alex Skolnick in the lineup, and in stepped Obituary and death guitarist James Murphy. And he's a very talented guitarist, but his approach is a bit different from Alex Skolnick's. It's also the mid-90s here, and the album is obviously a product of its time. And I'm not really a big fan of the production values of the 90s, as you guys know by now. But I'm not hating on the album either. The songwriting is pretty cool, and I think that Low is a much better album than Demonic, but it's still one of the weakest Testament albums in my humble opinion. In 10th place we have their latest studio album Titans of Creation from 2020. And I think that the band has cultivated a sound over the last couple of albums. You kinda know what you get from Testament these days. And maybe that's my biggest issue with this album. I feel like we've done this album a couple of times already. But I still think that Titans of Creation is a serviceable album for fans of modern day thrash. In 9th place we have Brotherhood of the Snake from 2016. And the same can be said about this record. It's more of that modern, tight, almost mechanized thrash sound that Testament has become known for. There are a few cool tracks on this album, like The Pale King and Stronghold. So that's my number 9, Brotherhood of the Snake. And in 8th place we have Dark Roots of Earth from 2012. And this was another album from the modern era Testament that I think spans from 2008's The Formation of Damnation up until their latest album, which is Titans of Creation. But I hold this album higher than their last two efforts due to songs like Native Blood and Rise Up. It really helps a lot that this album has a meaty, polished rhythm guitar tone which faithfully emulates the band's legacy without constraint. And by the way, what the heck is Slayer's Tom Araya doing on the album cover? In 7th place we have The Formation of Damnation, and I might be one of the few that holds this record higher than the Dark Roots of Earth album. And this is sometimes referred to as their comeback album when it came out in 2008. Their previous album, The Gathering, was from '99, if you don't count the re-recorded songs on 2001's First Strike Is Still Deadly. And if you're curious about the more modern era of Testament, then I think you should start with this album, because songs like Henchman Ride and More Than Meets the Eye are cool Testament songs that are worth checking out. In 6th place we have The Gathering, and this was Testament's return to a more brutal thrash metal sound, after experimenting a bit throughout the 90s. And Testament had an incredible lineup when they recorded this album. Chuck Billy, Eric Peterson, James Murphy, Steve DiGiorgio, and Dave Lombardo from Slayer. It don't get much better than that. And this album was released in '99 when thrash metal was more or less dead and buried. So The Gathering was one of those albums that was very important to the thrash metal revival that more or less kicked off with this album, and a few others of course. And I saw Testament live during this tour, and they surely kicked some ass. DNR, Do Not Resuscitate, is an incredible thrasher. Super intense stuff. so that's why The Gathering is my number 6. In 5th place we have The Souls of Black, and some people refer to this album as the last of the classic era, but I would include the Ritual in this time period when Testament were in their prime and about to really break into the consciousness of the mainstream. But I do have some issues with this record. I felt like the band weren't really progressing here. I mean, I do appreciate it when bands stick to what they're good at, but I don't think that the songwriting was getting any better if we compare Souls of Black to its predecessors. Still, songs like Souls of Black, Malpractice and Absence of Light are some of the highlights from this album. In 4th place we have The Ritual, and this album is very varied. Some people think of this album as being too mainstream, and I can understand that, but honestly, this is a great album. I mean, Chuck Bill might not be as aggressive on this album as some of the predecessors, but songs like Electric Crown, The Sermon and Agony are cool tracks. It also features one of the band's most popular ballads in Return to Serenity. The Ritual has a good and clean production, and it's definitely worth checking out, even if it's not a full-on thrash metal album the whole way through. In 3rd place we have Practice What You Preach, and this album came out in '89. And Practice What You Preach is a bit different from their first 2 studio albums. It's almost like a concept album with songs about environmental issues and how humanity keeps messing things up. Sound-wise, I think the album builds on the New Order sound. Sins of Omission, Greenhouse Effect and the title track Practice What You Preach are classic Testament songs. So Practice What You Preach is my number 3. In 2nd place we have The Legacy from 1987, and I almost put this album in 1st place since it's an amazing debut album. It's fast and raging, and it has a youthful charm to it that the rest of their catalog lacks to some degree. Over the Wall, The Haunting and Burnt Offerings are all mega classics. Well, the whole record is absolutely brilliant, and it's just one of those records that every self-respecting thrash fan should listen to. My favorite Testament album is The New Order. In terms of production and scope, this album is a step up from The Legacy. Maybe it hasn't got that youthful raging energy that their debut album has, but The New Order is a remarkable thrash album. Songs like Trial by Fire, The New Order, Eerie Inhabitants, Into the Pit and Disciples of the Watch are all amongst the best songs that the band ever wrote. For me it was really a close call between this album and The Legacy. I like them more or less equally, but the production on this album is a step up, I think. And here we have Testament albums ordered from the worst to the best. So let me know if you guys agree with my list. Do you hold The Legacy higher than The New Order? Or do you perhaps prefer some of the more modern era albums above the more classical 80s era? Let me know your thoughts down in the description below. And feel free to rank their albums from worst to best as well. And if you're a disciple of Testament, then smash that like button, share the video with a friend, and subscribe if you aren't already subbed up. And if you want to hear more from Testament, then I'll suggest that you check out my thrash metal playlist on Spotify. It's linked down below, and you're also welcome to join my Discord server, where we talk about all things metal. And if you want to support my work, then I'll suggest that you become a patron like these gentlemen. Or go and grab yourself a shirt from the Ruthless metal store. And feel free to give me some design ideas for t-shirts. I'm definitely interested in hearing what type of merch that you guys wanna see. I mean, I can't do band shirts and such, but I'm open for suggestions. And I'm also interested in hearing what band's discography I should rank next. And that's it folks, thanks for watching, stay heavy, listen to Testament, both the old and the new. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye.